Good afternoon. Welcome to the tea table. I am so happy you've joined me today. And it's a cold February day. We are not quite at our fabulous Valentine's Day, but we're moving that direction. Yes. We are listening to the most beautiful violin music today, and it's a CD, a recording called Kreisler Plays Kreisler, and it's the famous Fritz Kreisler from the last century, the Viennese great violinist who composed many songs, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But if you haven't gotten your tea yet, please pause and get your tea, and I will be waiting for you. I am making a pre-Valentine tea party tea tray with pink, and we're having very traditional American tea item, little brownies, homemade, on a pink plate. Oops. And yes, they are on a doily, if you can see. And I am taking my pink cup with gold. This is Bavarian China, and this is Bavarian. And so we're really going to have the royal treatment today. Getting ready for St. Valentine's Day, which we will have a tea talk next week. But here's the creamer, a little bit of milk. Oh, that tea is strong. I'll take a little more. And I have a lovely napkin for us with a pink rose getting ready for spring napkin holder. And I've put a pink tablecloth on my dining room table with red vase, glass vase, and maybe we'll go to my table for next week. Oh my goodness, that is fabulous. It's cold, and that's why I'm wearing fur. This hat is perhaps one of my most special hats, and perhaps one of my most special possessions. And it is an animal fur hat from Italy, Florence. It's vintage, it's old. I picked it up at a little thrift sale, and I love it. When I was young, in my junior high years, I had a leopard coat, and I wore it with black gloves and a black velvet hat, and I loved that coat. I love animal print. And actually, I'll tell you what I'm wearing today is a camel coat. And camel coat is so classic. However, it just wasn't quite warm enough. And so this is a fur that I had that has all the colors. It just sort of seemed to go. And I have a necklace that has a little Baltic amber in the middle. It matches my ring. And it just seemed like it all goes together. I love fur, the animal print, Baltic amber, tortoise shell glasses. And I have to tell you about that in a minute. And this is my little purse today. And this is very vintage. This is real snake skin or alligator. I think it's maybe alligator or snake. It's real, and it is so vintage, and inside, pure leather, white kid leather. I have a pair of glasses in here, but isn't that just lovely? And way down on the label, I finally could read it. It's way down, and it's Italian made for a California, some fabulous shop, probably back in the 40s. This is really old. This is vintage. And I love it. I love vintage. You do too. I know that you on the Tea Talk have the appreciation. And it's not hard to find things. And often people ask me, how do you store your things? Well, it's not hard. I have a few hat boxes that are large, and I have found that you can get many hats in one hat box. This hat is in a hat box with about 4 other hats. And so those are my winter hats, and then I have some summer hats. And they're not hard to store. And a little purse like this, I just have a place I hang them. And it doesn't take up much room, accessories like this. When Easter comes, I put all my furs away, and I put them in a plastic zip with my any good woolens that I want to protect from the moths. I put away and put them in the closet. And then I take my summer out. So I don't keep everything out all the time. It's not hard either to do that. And I found something this week I wanted to share with you. This is sandalwood soap from Italy, and it's called gentleman's soap. But actually, sandalwood is a scent that I love. My mother always had sandalwood soap, and to find real soap from Italy, oh, it's wonderful. And I thought, these will last a long time. And, you know, these are available. I only buy Italian soap, British soap, or American-made soap. You have to be careful. When it says on the back, distributed by, that means they're not telling you where it's made. And I love Italian soap. And I will tell you a secret. I'll tell you a good place to get it for a good deal, because I like good deals. I used to say I'm Mrs. Shoemaker, and I have 7 children, and what I should have had was a column in the paper. How do you live on a shoestring, and how do you get deals? Because I've always gotten deals all my life. So I'm going to share a secret. The one store you can get real Italian and real English soap is Ross. And they're very reasonable. This is such a deal, you wouldn't believe it. And I've also seen Italian at TJ Maxx, but you have to look on the back, and it has to say made in, or made in England, made in Italy. So that's what I wanted. I thought I've got all this kind of brown and camel, it all goes together. And I just really love February. We've had snow, and then our snow is nice. It melts quick, and then we got a little more. Because if we ever get really bad snow here, we're not used to it, and our driving situations are really precarious. Western Washington is by the Puget Sound, and so when it goes to low temperatures, you get a lot of black ice, and it's dangerous to drive. So I'm glad that it just comes and then melts. We get to see it, and it's cozy. I had a special experience this last week. I was sitting in my chair with my morning coffee, and I looked up, and I saw little raindrops on the window. And we hadn't had rain for like 3 or 4 weeks here. It's been totally unusual. We had bright, sunny, cold days, but no rain. And when the rain splashed on the window, it was so comforting. I thought, I love my rain. And I thought of all the beautiful songs that are written about the rain and leaving on a jet plane and in the early morning rain. And oh, there's just so many. Because the rain has a personality all its own, and it's inspiring. And it's rather interesting that the climates that have rain are creative. Where I live, it's very creative. I think about all the businesses that have been created here. We've had Boeing, Costco, Starbucks, DuPont, Amazon, Microsoft, to name a few, and it's Pacific Northwest, and I think it's that rain gives you time to think. Well, I found something special at my little thrift shop, and I thought, this is a prize forever, and I want to share it. I know we're a tea talk, and this is a coffee shop, but they serve tea. This is an original Starbucks canister with original art, and it's the painting of the very first Starbucks in downtown Seattle. And then they made it look like a French cafe, but I analyzed it, and it is the downtown Starbucks. And on the back, it has the artist and the label. And this is really old and really valuable. And it's a wonderful canister I'm keeping my coffee in. I like to keep my coffee airtight and my tea airtight. It keeps the flavor in, yes. Now I'm looking at this shawl or fur I'm wearing. It's making me look like my dark hair is hanging down, but that's actually fur. Isn't that interesting? Well, Fritz Kreisler, I know that many of you know who he was, but many of you don't. He was a man that was born in Vienna, Austria, and he was the 7th child. His father was a doctor, and in those days, this is before radio, before records, before anything, people would gather in their homes and play string quartet for entertainment and enjoyment. And his father would have string quartet playing, and it is said that Sigmund Freud came to his house and was an amateur violinist also. Einstein was an amateur violinist. And in order to have music, people had to play music. Well, his father was quite gifted, I guess, and once he would teach one of his sons violin, and once they learned it, then he would take the viola part, and then he taught the next one viola. Well, everybody ignored little Fritz. He was only 3-4 years old, running around the house. One day, he said, I play, and they all said, what? He picked up the violin, and he played the most beautiful piece, and they said, oh, Wunderkinder. Now that's in German, means wonder child. Wunderkinder, like genius. And so his father took him to the conservatory, and they were awestruck. And they gave him lessons, and he learned harmony, he learned music, he learned the science of music, he learned scoring. He became a proficient musician. But the greatest thing he was a performer. There are many great musicians, but when it comes to really performing, they don't have that emotional connection with the audience. Well, Fritz Kreisler did. And he was what you would call a rock star in that era. I know my father, as a young man, admired Fritz Kreisler, went to hear him play. Everyone admired, everyone wanted to play violin because of him. And this is him actually playing on this CD. It's old recordings they put together, and many of these songs he wrote. Liebe schlägt and Liebes Freud. Love's sorrow, love's joy. There it is. And he was able to connect with the audience. And people would go to his concerts and they would leave and they'd say, I feel closer to him than my own mother. There was something in the music and the power and the emotional love he could pour out on his violin. And he had a good wife who really was very helpful to him. And she said in those days, they weren't paying the musicians. You've always heard of the poor artists. Well, they were not getting paid much. And she said, this has to change. And so she was a good business lady, and she negotiated contracts, and he started getting paid very good money for his performances. And the art and music world looked to that as a change. They've always been paid since, or at least the expectation was there without apology. You know, people are so in love with music and it makes them feel so happy and good that money is not even thought of. And they think, oh, this is just all free, but he had to have bread and butter, right? Yes. Well, oh, this is such wonderful tea. It's really a necessity right now. He has a tonality on his instrument that is so warm and it's so relaxing. And when I had my 7th child, my youngest, Elizabeth, I had 7 cesareans, and I was told by my doctor everything went great, but he said you cannot go up and down stairs for at least 4 weeks. And so all of our bedrooms were upstairs. So I was upstairs, and it was the biggest blessing of my life because I had my little Elizabeth, we call her Bowie. And the one tape I had up there was this tape, Kreisler Plays Kreisler. And that would play like on a loop. I played it all the time. So she was coming into the world and growing in her first few weeks with that in her ear. And she's a very good musician and violinist. But the blessing was I was getting served because I couldn't run up and down, and it was the best blessing to me. And it was really special, really calm, quiet times in life are to be treasured. They're so important. I am teaching a class right now on the history of worship. And you who are familiar with the Psalms, which is called the Psalms of David, but really it's written by not just David. There's Solomon, Moses wrote Psalms, Habakkuk wrote a Psalm. There's different authors, Asaph. But in the Psalms, it's poetry, it's Hebrew poetry. And you will have a few verses, and then it will say Selah. And Selah means pause, rest, think about what you just read. And it can also be a musical instrumental interlude where everyone's singing all this psalm, then they pause and the instrument plays. They have a pause. And that's what God intends life to be. The pauses are really important because they're a time of reflection so that you can take it in and ponder and think about your next step. That's what Sabbath is. That's what Shabbat is. The 7th day to rest. And we in the Christian world, we keep Sunday because it's the resurrection day. But it's one day in 7 that is different than all the rest. And it's a day of rest. And it's a day to really reflect, have family time, have a nice dinner, use your best china. This is really what the tradition of the Sunday dinner was, that this is a type of heaven. It's a type of beauty. It's a type of rest, and everyone to wear their best and to be their best and to de-stress. I think it's what we need today. I had a wonderful class last week. I have a whole new group of Kenyans. I have 2 pastors from Kenya in my class. And oh my, they are such a pleasure to teach. These people are so engaged, they want to learn. And I was going back over one of the main points of this class is one of the most important things we have in our lives to defeat negatives, darkness, evil is worship. And we were created to worship God. We're created in His image. Adam and Eve would have had the perfect worship. So I was starting out and I said, let's go back to the beginning. Well, originally in my notes, I went back to Abraham because many consider him the beginning. You know, he's called and he builds an altar, and then he goes up to the mount with, you know, his son Isaac, and he's going to have a sacrifice, and God provides. That's where Jehovah Jireh comes in. But I thought, no, I have to go back earlier, because true worship in perfection would have been Adam and Eve before sin, because they just walked and talked with God. That's what worship is. But I thought the first sacrifice has to be Cain and Abel. And because at first I thought after Abraham I'll go to Noah, but I thought, no, I got to go pre-flood. So I went back to Cain and Abel, and then we come forward. There's the patriarchs, and then Noah. When Noah gets out of the boat, what is the first thing he does? He builds an altar and worships and thanks God for everything. And then you can go forward, and of course you have then Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But then you go to Moses. And this is the big thing that is so exciting. Most people don't realize, but when Moses went up on the mount and got the 10 Commandments, he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. He also got the design for the tabernacle, which was to be in the center of their camp. They were 40 years in the wilderness. They built this beautiful tabernacle. It's like a tent, but it had detailed instructions, very special wood. It had gold. It had the Ark of the Covenant. It had the Holy of Holies. It had the outer court, the inner court. It's very complex. Later, when Solomon builds the temple and David builds the temple, David has the plans for the temple, where do you think he got the ideas? It's from the tabernacle. The tabernacle becomes the temple in a big, huge building, permanent building. And then I was thinking, I moved forward in history, and I thought of the cathedrals. The cathedrals are the next level, the next step, and they are built with very specific design. Most of them are built in the shape of a cross, and each of the parts of the cathedral symbolizes worship. And of course, the temple was all about worship. And worship is so big, and it's not only what we think of just going to the temple or going to the cathedral or going to the tabernacle, but it's how we conduct our lives. And very, very beautiful. And one thing I read as I was studying, the tabernacle symbolizes the human being, body, soul, and spirit. The outer court was the body, the inner court is the soul, and the Holy of Holies, where they would meet God, is the spirit. Now, isn't that interesting? It's so fascinating. And I am having a wonderful time researching this. And I thought, okay, I'm going to bring my little book bag because it matches what I'm wearing. This is another vintage. I just love vintage. It's my bag I take to class that has my lecture notes and my handouts. And it's a very, very nice bag. And it's genuine leather. And it just feels so good. And smells so good. And I just encourage all of you to keep your eye out. There's wonderful vintage things still available. They're very inexpensive. They're better quality. They have personality. They have a story. They're antique. And there could possibly be less and less of them as people start collecting. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tea talk, and let's all be getting ready for Valentine's Day. I love Valentine's Day. It's the most romantic holiday of all. It's the holiday of love, hearts, flowers, and we will have a wonderful talk next week. Oh my goodness, Fritz Kreisler, is that just gorgeous? If you are interested, this is playing on my Apple Pod here. So he's online. It's called Kreisler with a K, Kreisler, plays Kreisler. And it is about the most beautiful music and will really warm your heart and comfort you and give you strength. That's what music does. Well, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, please share, please press the notification bell. And if you like it, the like button, I love your likes, but I love your comments the best. And this tea tray is so pretty today, and I want to just let you see it again. With the napkin, all you need for a nice tea tray is a pot, a creamer, sugar. Now I have 1 cup today because I only have 1 cup of this. I have 1 cup and a little plate of this pink pattern. Isn't it beautiful? I just love it. I love pink, and I love red and pink together also for Valentine's, and red and pink and white are very nice. Well, please have a fabulous week, and think about, you can look up things on the tabernacle also. You can look up things on the temple. There's so much to learn. You can pull up on YouTube a video and it'll show you all of how involved it was. It's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And I will look forward to seeing you next time.